And lately we've been getting a lot of issues like that. I mean, our order entry application, all our applications were green screen. And back in 2015, they decided, look, we can do some really nice things using PC applications and PC programming languages. So we're going to do that. And everyone's like, okay, that'll be nice, because they have more space on the screen than we do. Yes. So, yeah, okay, we're all in for that. And they're like, we need to review how order entry works so that we can make sure that we can do everything that the system currently does. And at the time it was mooted, and we'll look at all the shortcomings because the system was designed in 1990. And you know, a philosophy of the time was, who on earth is ever going to order $1 million worth of steel? Well, it turns out in 2024, yes, people are going to order $1 million of steel. So our database doesn't support $1 million orders, which is kind of okay, fine. So the theory was they were going to update, upgrade the system so it will support, steel sales for the next 20 years. We've got 34 years out of our current system, and we're now hitting the point where there is a certain level of a couple of percent of orders just can't go through because the numbers are just too big for our system to cope with. Which isn't bad. I mean, like I said, we've done 34 years with the system. And we're now we're noticing the problem more often. So if they could, if the rewrite worked the way they'd suggested it was going to work, then things would be good for another 25 years or so, I would presume. But what they've ended up doing is sort of saying, oh, we're going to keep the database, which is half of the problem. And we've designed a bunch of screens, and now we need the AS400 programmers to create data pullers that will pull the data so we can display them. All they've done in the last 9 years is design some pretty looking screens with nothing behind them. They don't do math, they don't do anything. We're like, you took 9 years to do that. And now you're getting to the point where, look, we've got these nice screens, we want to test them, you need to give us data. And it's like, you're not testing anything then. Effectively, they've just written a fancy paint package to bolt onto the front of our AS400 screens. So we no longer use the AS400 screens, but we still use all the processing and all the math and everything else is heavy lifted by the AS400, not the PCs. And the problem is we've got two aging order entry programmers. There's me. The other guy is beyond retirement age and retires at the end of this month. Although they have asked, can you stay till the end of the year? But he's now at the point where, you know what, I might stay, I might not stay, and the moment I decide I've had enough, I'm not staying anymore. And so he could turn around, he could say, yeah, I'll stay. And then middle of July, he might say, you know what, I've just had enough of this crap, I'm out. And there's him, and there's me. And I'm no spring chicken either. So, rather than, the two of us kind of considered it's a good thing that they're rewriting the sales order entry system, because we're leaving in, in the course of the next 10-ish years. They will have no order entry programmers who understand how the system works. But that's okay, because the rewrite people will understand how their system works and who will have gleaned all the knowledge from us, so that they have current programming knowledge to support the sales team, except they won't. They will have PC programmers who know how to make a pretty looking screen, and they will still require AS400 programmers to manipulate the data in the background. And so if any calculations, it makes maintenance for me even harder. At the moment, I can go onto the AS400, I can run the same screens that the salespeople are running, and I can run into debug and say, what, you've got a complaint about some piece of information that's appearing on your screen, let me review it, and I can actually look at the program code while it's running to figure out what went wrong. Well, the problem is if we're now, all we're doing is supporting a back-end process, they will do something on a screen, they will say this thing on the screen is wrong, but there won't be any way to do an interactive interrogation of how the data got into the state it got into before it got passed to the screen. They won't be able to look at it, and I won't be able to look at the results because I'm not authorized to access the PC screens. So it's like you've just made, when this goes live, it's just made my job twice as difficult, because I can't solve the problem without seeing what is happening, and so I'm going to have a PC programmer demonstrate to me what's happening in a Teams call, so that I can then figure out what the program is doing behind the scenes, but I can't get into it because I'm not running it, it's running in a batch, triggered process that I don't have sufficient security to view what's going on inside it. So it's just going to be an absolute nightmare. But I retire in 10 years or thereabouts, so I was of the opinion I don't care. Slowly but surely all of the stuff I support is going to go away, and once the last bit goes away I can retire, because I am then not needed. But that's, I'm kind of fine with that. But it's rapidly looking like that will never ever be the case, and they will always need an AS400 programmer to figure out what went wrong. And when my colleague leaves, I will be the last person who knows any aspect of sales order entry. And even then, a lot of the times I have to rely on a business expert. We have a team of business experts who generally tell us what went wrong and even indicate at least something that we can understand in order to understand what it was supposed to do and how to fix it. So it's kind of like being in the depths of Alaska and I'm driving a car, and I can use a wrench and what have you, but I don't necessarily know how to do car maintenance, but somebody can talk me through it. If I can get a mechanic on the phone, I can tell him what I see going on, and he can rationally figure out what the cause is. So we have a collaboration between people who use a tool regularly and people who program the tool and don't necessarily understand the full ramifications of everything inside it, because we don't do it we test stuff before we put it in production, but we don't necessarily know what the results of our tests mean. We rely on the business experts to say, oh, I tried this, and while you fixed it in that situation, you didn't in this other situation. Sometimes they can get a little bit I do know my colleague was working on an automatic calculation of if the customer says they want it next week on Thursday, and it takes 2 days for the warehouse to run it through a laser cutter, then the warehouse has to get it done by the end of Tuesday, for example, or at least start it before Tuesday, before the end of Tuesday. That's fine. So he'd written this date calculator, so the customer tells us when they want it, and we figure out A, if it's feasible, and B, when the warehouse that's doing the work needs to be done by, so they can deliver the finished material in time for a truck to take it to the customer. And so anyway, he did a good few weeks work on this date calculator, which was, yeah, okay, fine. He got it all done, and one of the people tested it, and yeah, it's doing exactly what I want it to do. So he's like, great. So are we good to put it into production yet? She said, I've got a couple more tests to run, but we're good. Yeah, it's looking good. Okay. The next day she comes in and says, oh, no, in this situation it's doing completely the wrong thing. So he's like, but it's doing what you told me to make it to do. And she's like, yes, but in this situation I want it to do the opposite. So he's like, okay, a computer can do that. You just have to identify when you want it to do it the first way and when you want to do it the second way. And her answer was basically, when I feel like it. So when I feel like it, I want it to do the first way, and when I feel differently, I want it to do the second way. And it's sort of, yeah, it's not how computers work. So either you've got to pick one or the other, and if it doesn't do what you want it to do, you have to manually, there's nothing to stop them manually entering things. It's always been a premise that the system will make an educated guess on what something needs to be, and if you don't like it, you can manually change it, and the system won't correct you. It assumes you know what you're doing if you change a thing. So that's always been the case within our software. So but they suddenly got to the point where, well, having to have a salesperson edit something because they don't like it can introduce errors, so we'd like it to do it automatically more frequently. So we've been automating our system, basically putting in a level of AI into the system so that it can make better educated guesses more of the time, and they don't have to mess with what it does. And that's all fine, but occasionally it guesses wrong because we haven't got 100% case covered. And also, if there's no flagging situation, you can say, if something is stainless steel, then we want this to happen, but if it's carbon steel, we want this other thing to happen. That's easily identified. We can identify the material that is being processed. Oh, dude, stupid. I didn't want that to happen. Just ran over a bit of a prop. I wanted that to happen. But yeah, you can go by a known factor, but if it's sort of, well, when I feel like it, and if it's Wednesday, then I want this to happen, otherwise I want this other thing to happen. It's like, yeah, we can't accommodate fuzzy logic. We either do it one way or the other way. that project never got finished. It got cancelled because he couldn't come back with a way to support what they wanted to happen. Okay. But yeah, computers don't act on your feelings, they just act on, where are we going with this? They act on stuff that they are aware of. Oh, we are doing this to the grain mill. That's kind of fancy. That's where we own. But anyway, that's all a thing. Ugh. Not an easy climb out of here. So that was work and me dealing with everybody else's problems but mine. I think of all, 7 issues I got reported to me yesterday. One was something I was responsible for. And that had been assigned to somebody else. And everything that got assigned to me was like, yeah, that's not a thing I deal with. That's not a thing I would be responsible for, or even that's not even a thing I can access. But we have, also we have this sort of rule in the department. You can't allocate if something is allocated to you, you have to deal with it, and if you can't deal with it, you have to contact someone responsible and get them to agree to take it. And if the problem is some people are like, I'm not agreeing to take it, and so what am I supposed to do with it? I can't fix it, I can't investigate it, I can't do anything with it. If you won't accept the problem, it's on my work list for the rest of my entire tenure. Or in 2 years' time, I'll just close it because nothing's happened and everybody's forgotten about it. It's not a good thing. Actually, I've got something like 25 tickets now. And half of them aren't my problem, but nobody accepts responsibility for them. So I think I've got some that are over 2 years old. So I might just close them, as nobody wants to fix this. I've no idea if it's still a problem. They might actually, that's the thing, I mean, some of the tickets, or some of the issues that I'm receiving tickets for, it might not be the only occurrence of that ticket because someone reported it 8 months ago and somebody else has probably reported it in the meantime. So it may actually have got fixed on a different ticket because it got assigned to the right people to get it fixed, but I don't know. So, as I said, it just sits on my list of things that supposedly I need to do, but I don't have the authority, I don't have the ability, I don't have the access to the applications or the knowledge. And well, that's nice. I mean, the one I did have to deal with, it was totally unclear what the problem was. And I'd read the ticket, and I don't see what the issue is. It's a known problem, and it's not actually something we can fix because it's something in the way that the system was designed, and it uses a third-party tool which we have no ability to modify, and the business has no desire to modify. So, okay, fine. This is a limitation of the system you are using. I can't necessarily fix that problem. But I read through it a couple of times and I thought, well, actually, it's possible that I could do something here. So I contacted one of our business specialists and basically said, okay, if I'm reading this right, this is a really weird way of asking for this. And, took him about 15-20 minutes to get back to me, but he basically said, yes, that's correct. What they actually want is this thing to happen. So I'm like, okay, fine. I can make that happen, and it's a 5-minute fix. It's add a record to a file, a table, that tells them you can do this. So I did that, closed the ticket. I get a phone call off the guy who raised the ticket, who says, oh, you just closed this ticket for this reason, but also there's this other thing that wasn't on the ticket that I also need addressed. And I'm like, okay, but that's not what I was that's not what the ticket reported. It's like some people, if I tell the help desk there is a problem with something, they will fix all of my problems because they know what I'm thinking and what I'm doing. And it's like, no, that's not how the real world works. You have to tell people, you can't walk into a doctor and say, I've got a headache. And so he examines you and says, yes, you've got a migraine, you need to take a leave. And you then say, oh, and my appendix hurts. As you're walking out of the door, you're sent home and you call back and say, well, I got my headache fixed, but I also got a stomach pain because I think my appendix is having a problem. And the doctor's going to be like, well, you didn't tell me about your appendix, you just told me about your headache. And that's what people seem to think of computer or IT help desks is, if I report one problem, you'll fix all the other ones that I have and haven't told you about, because you know about everything. No. So he said, I also have this other issue which wasn't on the ticket. So I said, oh, we don't actually have any way to do that now, so that's going to be a slightly longer process to fix. It does end up with me adding another record to exactly the same table, but there's a whole host of other things that have to happen to enable me to add that. And so that's in motion, but we raised a new ticket for that because I can't do two different things on the same ticket. And that's another problem we got, I think we got something in another system is happening wrong. You need to fix what it's being told. So I looked that up, and there was actually two underlying problems, one of which we knew what was happening, and the other one, it's like, I don't know how this is happening. Contact a business specialist and say, can you mess around with this until you figure out what causes this? Because the cause, everybody's doing it, and it happens once or twice in a blue moon. So we need steps. Because you tell me the steps, you give me an instruction sheet on what I did to make this happen, and I can then go and do exactly that whilst tracking the program code and figuring out what caused it. But he didn't have time, our specialist didn't have time to figure that bit out. He did have time to test the thing we knew was wrong and could fix. And he wanted to put that into production. But I'm off on Monday and Tuesday, and general IT rule, you don't put something into production the day before you're not going to be here. And obviously Friday is I'm not going to be here Saturday or Sunday, but nobody's using it, so it doesn't matter too much. To I'm not going to be here on Monday or Tuesday either, so there's going to be 2 days of people doing things before I'm back in the office and can fix any of the problems I may have caused with the change. So not putting the change in. Also, it's the same program with the non-obvious problem. And he didn't have time to figure out how that happens. So we'll see how that works out later. But yeah, a whole load of frustration.